Okay, so now that we have our basic drums and some of our musical parts, we can start a basic arrangement. So what I like to do for arranging is just sort of drag the kick across, zoom out, and let's just say we're going to make it this long. So sometimes I'll take a track that I like and layer it up top here and then just kind of copy how that arrangement went. That's definitely how I used to do it every time, and now I'm just slowly getting better at knowing what works, how long certain sections should be, where the breakdown should be. Um, it's definitely an art, but there is a bit of science to it, and that's where using tried and true records as guides can help. So we can do 32 bars before the first verse. We can go for another 32 before, like, where the kick drops out. We'll call that the pre-break. Then we have the breakdown. This can go maybe for another 32. Then we'll have verse 2. We can call this like verse 2.5. Like, we'll have a big change here to like signal something in the song. Then another break. The third verse. And maybe that won't go for 32. It'll just go for 24. Then the outro. And then we're done. So I think for the first verse, we'll probably want to break before that as well, just to signal it from a DJing perspective that it's time to mix out of the old one and mix into the new one. So now that we have this pattern, or sorry, this arrangement, we can start taking stuff away from the kick during the breaks, for example. Maybe this will still have the kick, but it'll fade out, so we'll make that white. And to do that, what I like to do is just consolidate the whole thing, Apple J, and then select these, hold Command, and then click here, and then drag. As long as you're holding Command, you get this little dotted line, and then let go, and it adjusts the velocity to that curve. So you'll hear that it slowly starts fading out. So that's really useful. Let's see, we can take the outro. Maybe we'll drop the kick here to that lighter pre-kick. Make that gray. And this will sort of signal to the DJ that the track's about to end and that they can mix in a new kick here. But if they wait too long or they prefer to keep the kick, they can just go to the next one. So it sort of gives them options from a DJing perspective. And we can get rid of 4 kicks before that, just so it's clear. So you want to just give the DJ signals about what's happening so that they can anticipate things, whether they're super familiar with the track or if it's their first time playing with it. So we'll get rid of it for there too. And then obviously the whole breakdown, we don't want a kick. So I think, and maybe we'll start with that one too. Okay, cool. Let's see, the clap. That can be the whole time for now. Let's just make everything the whole time for now. And remember, we made a couple different hat patterns, and this was the most extreme one, so the lighter one we'll probably start with. Then maybe we'll, bring this in here. Or actually, maybe the double hats will only be at the drop. We can always change it, but that's usually like a big energy boost, is to have those 16th note hats. And then, so maybe what we'll do is we'll take this out. And instead of making this the heavy ones, we can make it the half heavy ones instead of, and then we'll change the color of that as well. So I like changing the colors of like each separate pattern just to get a good visual. It's not always the prettiest, but I try to like shade it so maybe the lighter color is the simplest pattern and the darkest color is the most complex or most energetic pattern. So it just gives you a visual cue of what you're working with for the rest of the song. So we can get rid of this. I'm going to just reorganize these so it's sort of in order of how it goes. The clap we can take out as well. Maybe these glitchy hats can go the whole time for now. That cricket loop can probably go the whole time. Outside the breakdown, of course. But maybe we don't need the glitchy hats during the part where the open hat has those 16th notes, because that's just sort of duplicative. So we'll just bring those in later. This is also a pretty heavy way to start the song. It's a lot of stuff going on. So I'd say we probably take the shaker out. We don't need that till later. That can be here maybe. Or I guess since we're changing the hats on verse 1, we don't need to change the shakers till maybe 8 bars later. So that way we can introduce some variation in the drums right when people are getting a little tired of the current loop. Yeah, so I think that's a nice change. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. I like the idea, if we're going to change the open hat intensity, maybe we do that with the clap as well. So maybe we take that 909 snare and clap out. See how much of a difference that makes. All right, I think our velocities are just too low there, so we'll up those to have it make a difference. So let's see. So I know we did this earlier, but I kind of like it just ahead of the curve a bit. Okay, so now we'll copy that here. So now the clap is a little lighter, so you can just mix it in more easily before the clap gets too powerful and sort of defines the track. Okay. So I think we can get rid of the shaker during that 16th note hat part as well. And I think this is a pretty solid thing. You kind of want stuff changing every so often. You don't want it to get too stale, but you also don't want too much happening at once. So I think this is a pretty good balance. And I'd say we get rid of the brushes here as well. Cool. So I think we have some room to maybe add some more drums. Like, we could probably introduce something in this area. So let's create another drum rack. And let's add this wood block that I like. Oops, solo that. So now that we added a new drum rack, we're going to want to route that to our bus as well. Okay. So I think for this, I'm thinking it could just accentuate that that offbeat hit. So if we make it just a 2-bar pattern, maybe even just a 1-bar pattern, and do that offbeat. And this is a really popular thing to do, is just have it be those last 2 of each offbeat. So you hear that a lot in what they're calling like Afro House these days. That genre does this quite a bit. Just gives it a nice push and pull that's really good for the dance floor. Get this really low down, so make sure we have the velocity set up. So that's nice, but it's a little dull, so maybe if we add a hi-hat layer on top of it, nothing too crazy, but just enough to give it like a little sparkle at the top. So that's way too much. If we go down though. And then we'll also get rid of all the decay and sustain, so it's just the transient basically is what we want. So now it's just a little clickier, which is nice. It'll have it pop out more in the mix. So let's see what note that is hitting. So that's an E. So that could work, but we might be better off with the F or even a G. So if we have E, F, G is 3 semitones. Oop, that's the hi-hat. Well, that sounds good anyway. So I think the F works. So we identified that the main tone of the woodblock was an E. We brought it up 1 semitone. That makes it an F. Still part of the scale. It's the 4th, which is also a pretty dominant tone in that scale, and that's why it sounds better. So that woodblock gets introduced 8 after the shaker, so we're keeping it interesting. That can go all the way through here, and then maybe we introduce it again, but then we don't have it go all the way to the end of the song, just 8 bars before. Okay, cool. I think one other thing that we definitely should include are some ride cymbals. It's always important for added energy during the drops and stuff like that. So drum rack, route it to the drum bus. Great. So for this, let's say we can put it right here maybe, so that the drop will have like a bunch of noise probably. The hats are at their biggest point. And then because this is sort of the climax, 16 bars in, you sort of want the energy to keep going, and that's where the rides come in handy, where they sort of elevate it to keep it at that level, even though it's already been climaxing for 16 bars. So let's go to, this can accentuate the offbeat as well. It's a pretty common use of ride cymbals. So we want the sustain to last. So because we're ending here, if you actually drag it and bring it to the front, this note, when it loops, will continue onto this one, and then there won't be like a weird gap. So let's get rid of all that low end. attack. Okay, so I think that's sounding pretty good. We might want to do something a little cooler with it though. So what we're going to do is duplicate that. I already made this 25 cents up, so I'll make the other one maybe just 0, so there's slight difference. Maybe we can keep the sustain up for now. Let's do some different pattern. And the reason I made 2 is so that they can sustain where they can sustain over each other. So it's almost like he's hitting 2 separate ride symbols, which just sort of adds to the energy in my opinion. And then you can also mess with the velocity to get a cool pattern. Let's see what we got. So I think I like that. We'll take this down a little bit so it's more even. And let's make those top ones no attack, so it's yeah, so I think that's nice. And what we can also do is a little bit of auto pan. That's way too much. And just have that be on every note. So a good way to test what it's actually sounding like is just go to the max. That's too fast. Then change the offset so it yeah, so that's good. It definitely messes up our groove. So if we just put it on the one that's alternating, or the one that's consistent, then it'll just make it alternate. Let's mute that one and then. So notice you kind of need that offset to get. So actually in this case we don't, but sometimes you would depending on the pattern. So now we can tone it down. So it's pretty subtle. And then we can make this one random pan of like 15 maybe. So now they're just moving around a lot, maybe a little less. And that just kind of gives it this motion that makes it a lot more interesting. You can even do the random here too. Oops. So I think that's nice. Maybe if we have this one being a cool pattern, if we bring in the rides here, it can just be the offbeat. So that way there's some variation later on and we don't give it away too early. We can even bring the velocity down just so it's a slight addition to the open hat, because this pattern can stay the same, but we can just beef it up with the ride. Yeah, so maybe even less, just enough to sort of keep the energy going and build it up to that breakdown. Okay, cool. So I think maybe just one more. This time I remember I found a cool noise loop that I had made. I think I had made it a long time ago just from one of my synths, but gated it with like a tremolo effect and then just opened the decay so you get, oops, let's route that to the drum bus as well. And then that builds like to that. So what we can do is just loop that first section. And then if you go to beats, change this to just facing forwards, 16ths. And then if you bring this down, it sort of creates its own like gate effect in a way. So that'll be really useful to try to build up noise as we get to a certain transition or something like that. So for now, we can just keep it at like 25. We'll start it much lower in the mix, and we'll call that noise hats. So this will be a way to introduce sort of that 16th note groove. The vision I have for it is we'll probably have like it start from nothing and just slowly build up. And then as it gets noisier and noisier, it sort of signals that a new section is coming. So we'd do something like this maybe, where we have it looping for a while and then coming up to here. Like that, and then all the way up. We want it to build all the way to the end, so we'll do it like that. All right, and that's just a good shell for what we want each of our verses to look like. And maybe because it's the drop, we'll actually do it here too. Cool. Fade it in so that when the crashes happen, this won't be in the way. Yeah, so I like that a lot. Okay, so I think that is a pretty solid drum arrangement. It might seem weird that I'm just kind of like throwing these all out here, but this is really how I do work. Once I have the melodic idea and I know it's solid and I have a bass progression, I sort of put that on hold and then imagine the entire track just from a drum perspective, because it's a lot easier to just say, okay, here we're going to add an element, take away an element, we're going to build to breakdown, blah, blah, blah. If you're just thinking about the drums, because then all the melodic stuff sort of falls into place once you have sort of the shell built out, because you can tell just by the amount of drum tracks or which drum tracks are selected, like if the ride is in or not, whether it's going to be like a climax or a build, etc. So next we can get into arranging the melodic parts of the song and then starting to add some more pieces to the puzzle.